Hey, Woodlands Youth.
Hey, there's the song that...
Yeah, there's a song. The song is already played.
Oh, yeah,
the song is already played. You're enjoying this wonderful podcast. I'm Gabby.
I'm Justin. I don't have a camera to look at anymore.
That's okay.
So I'll just look at the two people I'm talking to, which I think is what you're supposed to do during podcast videos anyway.
Yeah. I think that's what you're supposed to do when you're just having conversation with people. Generally.
That's true.
The polite thing to do. But maybe that's
I'm
just
learning.
me.
I'm still learning how to have conversations with people.
Yeah. Oh, kids these days. You don't know how to look people in the eye anymore. We're joined by senior Kaelynn Kazda. Hi, Kaelynn. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good.
Good. So the question that we were talking about before we started recording as a little icebreaker was, you are a middle child. So we were talking about birth order. How does it feel to be the middle child? Are the stereotypes true?
I'd say a lot of them are. Like, you never get to go first, and sometimes you feel left out of a lot of things. And like how I was explaining the car situation, like one kid wants this car and the other kid wants this car, and I just need a car to use. Like, I don't care which one, just let me use a car.
Yeah, you're often like a mediator.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Kind of peacekeeper like person who like watches the other siblings get in trouble, and then not like to do that, and so then you don't get in trouble. So you're always like the good child, kind of.
Yep.
Interesting.
That's very true. I'm a middle child
Justin
as well.
is also a middle child.
That all rings super true. Because the older child, your sister doesn't, maybe this is, talk about your older sister, she'll never listen.
Yeah.
She's not, I don't think of her as like rebellious, like stereotypical rebellious child. Maybe for your household she is, I don't know.
I mean, she had her stage. It was a while ago, but I remember it.
But they're like headstrong, they're normally like
Yeah.
just fine charging the world and doing what they're going to do.
Yeah, entrepreneur, very, yeah.
And then younger child is the baby, the one that's taking care of, like, they're always lagging behind, but they're like, I don't know. But Aiden doesn't seem like a baby. Sorry,
No,
Aiden.
no.
I mean, you're welcome, Aiden.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times he's definitely different, and I don't think he's learned from me or Kirsten. So he's his own crazy person.
What's weird is younger children, like this was in the studies about number of children. You probably heard me talk about this before.
Yeah, before Justin had children, he researched the statistically peer-reviewed best family composition to
It's
have.
true.
So he's an expert on this.
No, I'm not an expert. I've read some, they were peer-reviewed articles though, but I read some articles. But it's interesting because the more kids in your household, the more insecure the younger children are because they compare themselves to more and more advanced kids. So they said, like, if you have 5 or 6 kids, you have this like 2-year-old who's watching a 10-year-old and comparing themselves to that, and so they're like thinking they should be able to do all this stuff. So it's kind of interesting. So I think younger
that makes
children,
sense.
yeah.
That's very interesting.
Depends.
If I Google
normally.
signs of a middle child,
Oh boy.
rebellious. Come on.
No.
This is wrong.
Yeah, I don't
Google's
think of
wrong.
either of you as being rebellious, but middle children watching,
Yeah.
comment down below. Are you rebellious?
Or the shy one that hides in the corner.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably more of a middle child.
That hide in the corner.
Well, just like kind of shy. Like when I was really little, I was like really shy. So, but now I'd say I'm more of an extrovert than an introvert.
Really? Where, like, what social situation are you the most, like, outgoing in?
I feel like probably around my friends at like homeschool activities. They probably say I'm crazy and fun in a way. Probably more outgoing. And like if I'm just like with maybe one friend and we go somewhere that maybe we've never been or something, then I'm like very kept to myself or just with my friend or something.
What are you like if you go by yourself, like you don't have that friend, if you're just completely by yourself in a social situation?
I feel like it depends. Because like it took me a while to like buy gas for myself because I only had cash. So I'd have to go into the inside and like ask for the
Talk
pumps.
to a human.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, you have to do that if you don't have a credit card or whatever. So that I feel like in necessary situations, I'm okay. And like I can muster up the courage to go do something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it kind of depends.
What about you, Gabby? You're firstborn. We've been talking about middle children this whole time.
Yeah, I'm the oldest daughter, which if you know, you know. I don't know. So I shoulder the crushing weight of
All the testing gets done on you, all the rules.
taking care of everyone.
All these children
And-
they're so no, so much drama with those.
most of the pressure and expectations I have placed upon myself. That's, yeah.
Oh yeah, because you have to do everything first. Like when you deal with this child, the younger child gets to learn from like, oh, Gabby did this wrong, or she did this right, and so I can emulate. Like I feel like that's what middle children get is you get to watch
They
the
see
older
the
child.
test subject, and then they know.
Yep. Or my parents, one time my dad said it like this, and I loved this. He said, with your older brother, we had no idea what we were doing, and with your younger brother, we didn't care anymore. He said, so you got the best upbringing as far as experience and desire. Yeah. So
That
sorry,
makes
Tyler
sense.
and Kyle. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then sometimes when you are like different from your siblings and you want to try something else, and then it's new to your parents, then you become the test subject, and then you're like, oh, this is new.
Yeah.
Or like, just, I don't know, different things. Like when I took an art class at the public high school, it was like, I was like none of our family, like we've been homeschooled since I was in 3rd grade. And so going back into a public school environment was so weird. And then my parents like put a lot of thought into that too. And it was like, oh, I'm being noticed a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like different, in a different way.
That's funny that you
It's
even
like-
say I'm being noticed. As a middle child, they don't notice
Well, like
anything that's
they
happening.
do, and like of course they care for me, but it's just like a different aspect of like, oh, now like we have to make this appointment with the school, we have to check out all these classes, and like the parent has to be there too, and so like I'm not just like, oh, I want to do this. It's like more interaction with more of a bigger like event
Yeah.
type thing.
And since they don't know, they have to put mental energy into
Yeah.
it. Like I think of with my 2 boys, with William, we didn't know anything, and so we're like researching everything of like when is this supposed to happen and what's going on. With Lincoln, I'm like, I don't know. He'll walk when he
Yeah.
walks. Like it's fine. Yeah, so it changes a lot. Yeah.
That's funny.
Okay, weird. Well, I have no. Speaking of families, there.
Wow, nice. Nice
my segue.
transition. Yeah, okay. Speaking of families,
So the last time on our weekly podcast, studying through the Bible, a month
every
ago.
week, guys, every week.
Yeah. We had a long hiatus. We had some vacation. People were sick. We don't have any other excuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Life is hard.
We like to keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
We know you missed us. So we're back now. Picking up with Ezra chapter 2. Last time we were here with Coulter, we talked about Ezra chapter 1. And we're going to pick up with Ezra chapter 2. So I have this
Special Bible. Gabby's
picture
special Bible.
Yeah.
You didn't know when Gabby preaches on Wednesday night, she's secretly holding this Bible.
I'm like, oh, what happens? I need the pictures to know.
That'd be so much harder to preach from, actually.
It
Yeah,
would
it's not
be.
like notes. There's like the speech bubbles, right? Kind of like a comic book.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the
Yeah.
tall white man said.
But who knows if they were white? Because
Yeah,
if
they
they're
are
in like an Asian country,
Kind of white. in
That's
this.
why.
They're like-
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. Anyway. Ezra chapter 2. I opened right to it. So whatever that means.
Yeah.
But yeah. What happens in Ezra chapter 2? Justin, Kaelynn.
Kaelynn, give us a summary of Ezra chapter 2.
Well, I briefly skimmed it on the way here, and because I was supposed to read it earlier, but then the date kept getting pushed back to do this because I was sick. So it was just basically of, I think it's the Israelites returning to their homeland from being captives in Babylon, and it was just a list of names of all the people that came back, and I think some said their professions, but yeah, general, just list of names that you can hardly pronounce.
So you've been reading the Bible for a while, right?
Yeah.
What do you normally think about when you get to? There's a lot of genealogies in the Bible. What do you normally think about when you get to genealogies?
I think it's like interesting, like who wrote the book and like who would include that, and how, or like why is it important? Like try to figure that out, and how I like to try to pronounce all the names too, because that's always fun, because you don't know, and there's Google can't really help you there.
Speaking of which, do you want to read the first couple verses and pronounce them for us? Is that fun?
Sure. Can I use it?
Here. Yeah, go for it. The picture Bible doesn't have the names.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
What? Well, then how do we even know what they looked like? Those are the real pictures of these people, right?
Yeah. It says, now these are the people of the province who came up from the captivity of the exiles, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken captive to Babylon. They returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each to their own town, in company with Zerubbabel. Say it like you've heard some of these names. You just got to pronounce it. Joshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Reelaiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvai, Rahum, and Bana.
Those are some good names.
A plus.
Should I keep going? I don't know. It's like...
So, confession, I've never actually sat and studied a genealogy before, so
I don't
it's my
think
first
I've
time
either.
doing this.
Because like you just skim it because you're like, these are so unimportant. Oh, now there's like a paragraph I can read.
Or like Matthew's genealogy, I've looked at before. Mm-hmm. But it's weird because it's kind of like you have the first couple that you know, and then there's like the Rahab, like, oh, that's there. And then again, you're kind of like, oh, whatever. And then there's like David mixed in there.
Yeah.
But
Nebo, that was my mom's dog when she was little.
Nebo?
Verse 29.
Named after
I have no idea.
this person.
But then verse 15
The
says
father
it looks
of
like Aiden.
Magbish.
Like Adin.
Oh, yeah.
That's weird. Who knew
Hashum.
people's names were biblical?
Gebar.
And it'd be fun to like meet someone whose name was like Nezia, and you're like, where's your name from? And they're like, it's biblical. Whoa.
Ezra 2.
Ezra 2, everyone's favorite.
Yeah, there's a list. So there's how many verses? Yeah. It starts in verse 3. Well, really in verse 2. It's listing names. And then it goes all the way down to verse like 60. 61.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if all scripture is God breathed and it's beneficial for us, what do we do with the genealogy?
It's kind of hard. Like, they didn't have last names, so you couldn't like look it up in a history book or something and figure out about them like you could have like generals in wars or something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's hard to think of, like, you can't just look them up, so you don't know who they were. I mean, you could try to find them in other old books.
What do you think of the end? So it lists all these people, and then I'm going to pick it up at verse 55. The descendants of the servants of Solomon, the descendants of Sotai, I don't know how to pronounce any of these names either. Hasaphereth, that's a cool name. Peruda, Jala, Darkin, Gidel. Darkin's got to be a bad guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just assuming. Like I've seen enough Disney movies to know like Darkin is evil. I shouldn't say that. Shephatiah, Hatil. I thought I saw Pokemon. Right?
Yeah, that's what was my thought too. Pokemon.
What? It's biblical. Pokereth, Hazabiam, and Amy. Wow, those two right next to each other. And then the temple servants and the descendants of the servants of Solomon. The following came up from the towns of Tel Malah, Tel Harsha, Karub, Adon, and Immer, but they could not show that their families were descended from Israel. So that's an interesting line. And then in verse 61 it says, and from among the priests, the descendants of Hobiah, Hakaz, Barzillai, a man who had married a daughter of Barzillai the Gilead and was called by that name. It's like this tiny little note about a random guy who is called by a name because he married someone. Wild. And then these searched for their family records, but they could not find them, and so they were excluded from the priesthood as unclean. What do you make of that?
So maybe they wrote them down just to have a list of all the people so they could kind of have some record of their family.
Why?
Because they just come back, and so if all of when they were captured, like, who knows what could have happened to Israel or Judah then, and if everything was destroyed, then they had nothing left to say, like, we lived here before, but now they have something that said they came back. Mm-hmm. So if when it said they came back, that means they were already there. But maybe they just want some more, like, family recognition.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're totally
Yeah.
on the, like, nail on the head. Yeah, can you imagine, like, I mean, it's really hard to even think of, like, a modern day comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Partially because we don't preserve, like, family history like how the Israelites would have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even to have, like, some kind of, I don't know, a family heirloom or something that was, like, really precious. I'm thinking of, like, I don't know, sometimes families have, like, jewelry and it's like, oh, my great-great-grandmother wore this bracelet on her wedding day and, like, I'm going to wear it on my wedding day too. Or, like, I don't know. That's not every family.
My family has
stuff
some
like that,
books from, well, we have a document where someone in our family came over on the Mayflower, like one of its second or third journeys. But then I want to say it's the 1600s. I found this really cool when I found this out, that someone in our mom's side was called the Witheringtons, and there's actually a town that's still where it was in England called Witherington, and we had a castle there, and they were like a lord and a lady, and one of the kings, on his way to claim the throne, I think in Wales, he stayed at their castle. But, like, we like just uncovered this at Ancestry because my sister took a DNA test. And it was just like, oh, we had a castle. Like, now it's burned down in rubble, but we had a castle.
But why,
That's so cool.
It's,
Yeah.
Like, why is that so fun to learn about?
Mostly because I love medieval, like, fantasy stuff. And, like, just to see, like, how far you've come. Like, you had a castle. It probably didn't have heat. And now, like, technology has improved and you're in America and it's totally different. But it's just, like, cool, like, where you came from. Because, like, we always been told my dad's side was from the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia. And then my mom was, like, English and German and, like, a couple other places. But it's like, oh, we have different parts over here who they probably didn't know each other. But then somewhere down the line, two people met, and now we're in America, and now we have a bigger family. Mm-hmm. It's like, so if, like, from them, their family has come back, and now they have to meet new people and start over.
Yeah, which is probably a lot of why the Israelites kept all that stuff to think about. It's fun to... I keep thinking of, like, your family's farm because we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
But, like, land is probably a part of this. Like, wanting to know what part of... Because when they came into the land of Israel, that became the land of Israel, they divided it by tribe. So if you're all coming back to know where you're going to live, they have to know, like, what family did you belong to, because that tells you what plot of land that you ended up getting to go back there.
Or if they had any, like, social order, like how much land you got.
Or even, like, if you could be part of the priesthood. So there's all this, like, concern about what family were you a part of. And
Yeah. So I even think of, like, that document from your family. Like, imagine if you needed that document to prove, I don't know, that you were, like, a U.S. citizen or something. Or to prove that, I mean, and for the Israelites, there's even, like, a higher stake because it's proving, like, you're God's people, like, so it's proving that you have this, like, connection with God's presence here on earth. So imagine if you lost that document and then I don't know, we said you can't be a part of Woodlands Church anymore. I don't know.
Well, imagine, like, the identity crisis for these people to, like, they've been raised being told you're an exile from Israel, God's people. And then they join this huge caravan going back, all the excitement, they get there. And they're like, okay, what part of God's people are you? And they're like, we can't find it.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not really part of, like, I'm just imagining, like, how crushing that would be.
Yeah.
To be raised and then to be like, so am I not? Like, yeah.
I feel like a more modern example would be, like, there's this really big concert that you really want to go to because it's, like, your favorite artist. You buy the ticket. This reminds me actually of a movie I saw where these old ladies bought tickets to go see the Super Bowl, and when they got to the gate, the guard said, these are false tickets, and you're like, you just waited so long to come to this event, whatever it is, and you can't come in because even though you have the ticket, it's the wrong one, or it's the wrong name, or it's not true.
And then for that to be tied to your identity, like what you were raised as.
Yeah.
Poor families.
Yeah. So are we to understand, like when I think about that passage, are we to understand that these are Israelites whose records have been lost, or are we to understand that there's maybe some kind of nefarious motive?
At this point, we probably just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more historical, so it's probably just like what happened.
Yeah, right. That's interesting to think about. Because later in like this process,
Yep.
in Ezra and
Spoil the book of
Nehemiah,
Ezra.
Sorry.
but like we do see like bad actors
Yep.
kind of come into play, and try to kind of stake a claim on what isn't theirs.
Well, I even think way further into the history of Israel, like during Jesus' time and Paul's time, where they're all worried about who's a Jew and who's not a Jew, and things with the Samaritans, and like intermarrying was even a huge thing for the exiles or the slaves coming out of Egypt, was not intermarrying. And so you have all of this, like they're trying to follow God. He has instructed them in ways to like keep the people their own people. They're not supposed to intermarry, but they're supposed to allow people to like join them, which gets really confusing. And now they're like checking passports to see. It just seems, yeah, it's very weird.
I think it's cool. I don't know if we're going in order, but in verse 64, it says the whole company numbered 42,360, beside their 7,337 male and female slaves. And they also had 200 male and female singers. They had 736 horses, 245 mules, 435 camels, and 6,720 donkeys. Like, if you think about that, back then, like, your animals was your wealth. And, like, here, you're, like, 6,000 donkeys. That'd cover, like, football fields.
Yeah.
Like, tons of just animals. But they, like, use that as wealth. And then to, like, write the exact number down, it's like, what if your donkey died the next day?
The scribe sitting over
Yeah,
there.
it's like, oh, scratch that out. Gotta change that.
Yeah, the sheer number of people. Like, so Woodlands Auditorium can hold about it's at max capacity. Like we have all these chairs out and it's seated in there. It's 1,200 people.
Wow.
So if you like think about being in that room, and there's 42,000 people with all of these animals, and I mean, I guess
It's
up
like
to
a
50,000.
country.
And then that's if they're counting actual people, or if they're counting adults, or if they're counting males, which I don't actually know for this passage.
And like to include, they had singers,
Yeah.
like specified.
Yeah, that's a very bizarre note to me. I have no idea what to make of that. And I'm sure there's some scholar out there who knows something about it. To me, that's really weird.
It's always fun to like learn the history behind the chapter or book. For one of our homeschool retreats, we had Michael Lane come, and he taught on the book of Jonah because he's a marine biologist, and all his facts of like who the Assyrians were and like why he didn't want to go there. Because like in your Sunday school story, it's like they were bad people, they sinned. But like to learn, they took them on spears and put them outside the city walls to intimidate people not to come in. And like they were more brutal, and more of like the historical stuff to help you understand the context. Like that's always fascinating to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like when it goes into intermarrying, when people hear like, oh, God sent the Israelites into this land and told them not to intermarry, what is God, like racist or something? And then you realize, oh, he's sending them into a cult. Like we have a globalized culture where we kind of know what like people from different nationalities are like because we just know about the world. But he's sending a people group into another people group where they sacrifice children. And he's saying, don't marry that woman who's going to sacrifice your child to an evil God. And like then it becomes a far more understanding like rule than our modern like, oh, that person's skin color is different, don't marry that. Like there are very different situations happening. So yeah, when you know the history, it helps a lot.
I think it's fascinating in our geography that me and my brother have been taking this year. It's just so cool because like you learn about a different country, like maybe 3 a week, but just the different cultures, because you're like, oh yeah, you know who they are, but then to really like watch a video of this specific African tribe and like what they do, or like the one tribe stretches their neck with like metal rings, and you're like, because they think that's beautiful. And it's just like different to see so many diverse cultures, like on the same continent even. It's like, I did not even know like those people were there.
Mm-hmm. And even these names is interesting because I think we had talked about this with Coulter, but I don't remember. Did I talk about A Knight's Tale? It's been a long time ago.
Maybe.
But like Victoria, even like during most of human history, it mattered who you were born from.
Mm-hmm.
And then America kind of invented the like, it doesn't matter who your parents were. You can recreate yourself. Like it's almost better if you came from nothing kind of a like mythos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to like transport back into an era where it really did matter who your family was. I mean, I'm guessing, was the UK a little bit more, was the UK more like your family name and where you came from was really important?
Yeah. Like there wasn't the like, you wouldn't be proud to have come from nothing in the UK. Like if you came from like a really poor background, that was kind of something that you like didn't want to talk about. But yeah.
Were they like concerned a lot about their family's lineage and history more than we are? Or is it not that way anymore?
I mean, in conversation, like family lineage never
No
really
one's busting
came
out,
up
they're
with like people that I was talking with. But it was like people's accent, like the different kind of, like same how in America we have like, there's like Southern accents or Midwest accent, right? Whatever.
No, we don't have an accent. It's just how Americans talk.
Bag.
Bagel.
But
Syrup.
it was like embarrassing to have, like there were certain kind of like lower class like accents from certain parts of the UK that was, and I mean like I was in Christian culture, right, where like it's not like people were like oh, you're from, you know what I mean, like we were in a church that was like welcoming and very lovely, but there was definitely a sense of like, oh, you could tell the people that came from money by their accent. Like how British and proper, like the more like proper and like kind of stereotypical, like fancy accent, like did usually correlate with people's financial heritage.
That's crazy to think about because that was probably very common in the, like even way, way, way more common in the ancient world.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I'm almost thinking the way that we see people who are homeless and people who aren't. It's like, it's very clear, right? Like if you've been around somebody who's homeless, it's just very clear, like, oh, you have all your luggage and you smell like you haven't showered. Like you probably don't have a shower. But now, like anybody who just owns a home can look pretty well maintained. So it's harder to differentiate wealth levels and social status levels. But I wonder how much of the people in Israel were differentiated and easy to tell. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's also kind of cool. It's like learning about all different cultures is normally you could have 4 generations in the same house. And like that was their normal thing.
Yeah.
And here it seems like once your kids are old enough, they're out. Like go live on your own.
It's like embarrassing if they're not.
Yeah.
Or it's a burden if the parents live, like if older parents live with their younger adult kids.
It's like we're supposed to like take care of each other and not just like, oh, you live 5 minutes away, I'll come visit. It's like, no, you can, it's okay to just live there and help them more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is like the old man now. I was like the millennial in me talking about kids. But I think of that with raising kids. Of like, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like it should be this hard. And then you realize like, oh, it shouldn't be. Or even like, I feel like the young adult trope is loneliness. It's like you have these young adults who move out of their home and then they're just not with people. Like, oh, yeah, maybe you weren't supposed to just go be by yourself all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to learn about the world is just get thrown in it.
Yeah, it's not a fun way.
Yeah. So this is an interesting conversation to me because I think it's very different than the way that we would normally talk about the Bible. I think that there's this. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What does this conversation mean for like the ways that we should think about and engage with the Bible?
I feel like my like prospect of how to read the Bible has changed because I'm taking the Bible 101 class. So like the pulling different pieces out of when we have to use colored pencils to like circle all the people, circle all the places, just to
there'd be like, a lot of circles in this message.
Yeah. But it's just like just pick out different things and like observe like the whole picture of like what's going on or like what do you see? like all these people moving back in, and then that raises the questions of like, what, like, did they have to rebuild houses? Was it all destroyed? And I'm sure you can probably read that in another chapter. But of just all that, it's like brings up questions, and then especially for this like more historical record of stuff in a Bible, which is mostly a narrative, it's like processing, why are all these names down again? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, like when you get trained to read the Bible as either a devotional or as a like self-help or feel-good book, and then you get to a passage like this, and you're like, this doesn't seem to help me follow Jesus more, and it doesn't make me feel good about myself, so I don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
So where do we put it?
Probably as historical, obviously.
Does this make a difference for how we live our lives? You know, like even in the Bible 101, right?
Yeah.
Like the method that you walk through is observation, interpretation, application. So there's like a piece of, you're supposed to take the text and say, okay, how do I apply this to my life?
Yeah.
What do we do with a passage like this? Whoa, what do you walk away with this and say, okay, now I know that I should do X in my life, or I should engage with God?
It's kind of hard. I think I would probably take away that everybody is important. Like, we can just skip over this, but like 100 years from now, if our name was on something, like that'd be cool, because then you can look back and have memories about it. But like everybody is important, not just like a single person. Like the donkeys are important. And so like treat everybody as like they're important, because they are, because God made them. Even if they don't know him, like they are important.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Bible is so focused on, it seems so focused sometimes on individual narratives, and especially men. And so you're like, oh, here's all these stories of like one guy after another. But then it's weird how many genealogies are in the Bible to broaden like who the story's about. But then those are the parts we kind of skip over. So it's interesting.
What's kind of cool is when I was little, I got this storybook from the biblical females, like all the girl heroes of the Bible. And it was meant for like younger girls, but it was so cool like reading all their stories, because you're like, that was in the Bible? Like, where was this? Because it's just so full of like Jesus and his disciples, and they're all males, and there's like no like where's the women in the Bible? That like for us, half the population is women, and we need examples
For them too.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, that's been true since Eve.
Like, we need some examples. And like Jesus is the ultimate example, but he wasn't a woman, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
But there's all these people.
Yeah. I think when I see a passage like this, and this is like, you know, broad strokes application that we're talking, right? I'm not drawing a specific application from verse 19. You know what I mean? But
It's verse 19.
I know. I was
it's
Hashum!
Hashum. 223. That's verse 19. But I see this as like, this is the start of like Israel being redeemed in their homeland. It's the start of God fulfilling his promises. Like even after such horrible loss and devastation. For those of you who don't know, I mean, Babylon was horrible, like horrible, like in the same way, and not just in like they made them pay taxes kind of horrible, but in like
They tore family, like killed people, tore them out of their homes, took them to places they've never even known existed, and then made them slaves.
Yes. Yeah. So when you think about like the really intense parts of the Bible that are like, why God? Like why is this happening? Like where are you? A lot of those passages are born out of that era of intense grief and hardship. So then to have something like this where, yeah, look at all these people. Look at all these people that are being restored to the promised land. That
what just made me think of, I've never thought of before, is this is Egypt if Pharaoh had said okay.
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
like Egypt, Pharaoh keeps saying no. Like, I'm not going to let the people go to the place God has said that they can live. And Cyrus is like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
your God said to do that, I'll do it. And so it's a much happier exodus. But that's like a rhythm in the Bible, is God's people are put somewhere, usually because of their really bad choices, and then they're enduring hardship, and then God rescues them, and they travel together.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I think about this, it reminds me about what you, Justin, preached about. This wasn't the main point of what you preached about, but you talked about prophecy.
Yeah.
Being like
My
God,
hobby horse.
Yeah. Being God's saying that he's going to do something and then him doing it. And that's what we see right here.
Yeah, he's faithful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a million different applications of that in our lives today.
Yeah.
God's faithfulness.
Yeah. Genealogies matter. I still remember Eugene Peterson, too, talking about how important names are. And then he comments like, oh, that must be why all those genealogies are in the Bible. Because names are really important. People are really important. So, yeah.
And I think also another thing, like, it doesn't matter, like, who your family is if they're, like, have a bad name and, like, that's their reputation. Like, anyone can come to God and come to the good side.
Yeah. And I think that's what, like, Jesus teaches us that the Israelites got wrong, was when they heard the laws about not intermarrying and what those things meant with families. I think Jesus showed us that they were misunderstanding the point, which was to not be corrupted into evil. And so Jesus shows a way to go. Anybody can come and be a part of it, no matter what family you came from, because there's a differentiating line, which is Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is pretty redeeming.
Yeah. And ties into what we've been going through in Acts on Sundays, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All of Acts preaches and thinks way differently when you go through the history of Israel and the people they hated, and to go to these people groups. And then, when you come from a history where they wouldn't let people, like, they show up and they don't have records, and so you're not even an Israelite. And then you go to, we're going to go invite these
known non-Israelites
into fellowship with us and even let them, become believers. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. With the Bible class, I haven't been to the sermon because we go to the class, the first service, and then we serve the second service. And then we always forget to go back and rewatch it because then we have the videos to watch for the Bible class.
Yeah.
It's like missing so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's okay.
At least I get to worship with
Yeah.
the little kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good for you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's Ezra 2. Next month, we'll find out what happens in Ezra 3. So they leave for Israel, and there's a bunch of people walking. That is the summary of Ezra 1 and 2.
Many people. And donkeys.
Yes.
Don't
And
forget
singers.
the donkeys. The singers. I do love that part. It's like, all right, was that... and it was funny because I looked at it, sometimes I'll go to the original language and just try to see if it's any different. And this is not a difference in meaning. It just hits me different. It says the, like, interlinear, where it's doing it almost word for word wouldn't. It says, and they had 200 singing men and women. And so I imagine it far more of, like, as they're counting people, anyone who's singing when you're counting, like, circle their name and keep track of them.
That's funny. Maybe they were, like... We have playlists, right, when we go on road trips today.
I was going a whole different route, which is like High School Musical. Like, as they're entering Israel, it's like a musical. I mean, that's what,
I guess that's kind of what the Exodus is with, whose song is it?
The song I think that's more of like a celebration song.
Yeah.
Less of a, like, dancing as you're walking.
Or how a couple places it says when they go up to the temple, like they had to walk up the hill, or up to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Like they sing. Like, I've tried singing going up a hill, and it's not that easy.
That's true.
It's like, how?
That's Taylor Swift's workout routine right there.
Singing while running up a hill.
Well, running on the treadmill. Yeah, that's what she did for like 6 months.
Really?
To prepare for the Eras tour.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
I guess
it's like
it's
3 hours of her
effort.
singing and dancing.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
Wow. Anyway,
Well, they probably walked a lot more than we do.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So-
Yeah.
They're probably
Yeah,
really
they
used to
didn't
that.
have wheels
Well,
Yeah.
to ride.
They had some
They had
wheels,
carts.
yeah.
They had carts. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah.
I saw this TikTok and it was like talking about how the concept of a gym would be so strange to
Yes.
like an ancient person. And
Yeah.
the joke was basically trying to be like, oh, like trying to explain the concept of a gym to an ancient person, being like, oh, well, you know how like you have to do really hard like manual labor every day just to survive? Well, we as a society like progressed to the point where we didn't have to do that anymore, but then we found out that it's like actually good for you if you still have to do that. So now we have this place called the gym that you go to do manual labor even though you don't actually have to do manual labor.
Yep. That's what I think often when going to the gym is like, why don't I just build something or clean something?
Yeah, because it's still being active and using
Yep.
your muscle.
But it's so much more inefficient. That's the downside. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
this has been the Unnamed Youth Podcast.
Yep. That was Ezra too.
Yeah. Thanks, Kaelynn, for joining us.
Yeah,
for your
thanks for
insight.
having me.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Bye. If you have
Bye.
questions, you can email us because you email or text the youth number.
Yeah, sure.
you
Yeah,
have.
like kids don't really email these days.
I realized it as I said it.
Okay, bye for real.
Bye.